Hi, I'm delighted to present my latest book, Sacked Folktales You Can Carry Around. These are folk tales from our wonderful tradition, and these are stories which I have contributed to magazines over the years. Some of them were published in this wonderful American magazine, Cricket, and its other sister magazine, Spider, which is for younger children. And apart from that, some of them have appeared in other collections. And what are these stories about? They're about wily old women, a clever nanny goat, a helpful snake, an invisible boy, a sorcerer king. They are people by extraordinary beings, both real and magical, human and divine, animal and demon. So, this is a collection of folk tales that has humor, adventure, and fantasy in equal measure. And the story I'm going to read out today is called The Barber's Secret. It's a in a very interesting story. There's a lot of humor in it, and I have a very deep connection with the story for the reason that my mother used to tell it to us when we were kids, and we definitely would enjoy it because there are some, musical instruments that come into the story, and she would reproduce the sounds very well. I don't think I'll be able to do as good a job as her. So, anyway, the Barber's Secret. A Nawab who ruled over a kingdom in northern India was a wise and just king, highly respected by his subjects. But this highly respected ruler had a terrible secret beneath his jeweled turban. A secret only his barber, Babban Hajjam, knew. And what was the secret? The Nawab possessed an unusual pair of ears, the long, hairy ears of a donkey. Babban Hajam had been warned not to let the secret out under any condition. I'll have your head chopped off if you do, the king had declared with a threatening frown. The first time Babban Hajam came to trim his hair. Never, never, your majesty, Babban Hajam said with a low bow. His voice shook as he squeaked, I wouldn't dare, never. As we all know, it's not so easy to keep a secret, especially one so extraordinary. And as time passed, it became harder and harder for Babban Hajam to keep that secret. He would keep thinking, if only my neighbor Mangru knew, how his eyes would pop. If only I could tell my dear wife. If only. But obviously, he didn't want his head chopped off. All the same, as time passed, Babban Hajam found it harder and harder not to tell someone about the king's ears. Only the thought that he might lose his head made his keep his mouth shut. But the itch to let it out just wouldn't go away. And as time passed, the secret began to turn heavier and heavier in his belly. It was like a big ball of lead weighing him down. He couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, and from a jolly, good natured man who sang at his work, Babban Hajam became a gloomy and irritable one. What's the matter, old friend? Mangru would ask. You've grown pale and keep muttering to yourself. Anyone would think that you should be floating on air, being the king's barber. Babban started up nervously. It's a great responsibility, you know, being the king's barber, he said with a serious look. What's wrong with you? Complained his wife. All night you toss and turn and groan and moan as if your stomach were aching. Shall I make some churan, some digestive powder for you? Nothing's wrong with me, Babban growled. But he was growing desperate now. This secret will be the death of me, he thought. And there is no one, simply no one whom I can share it with. Then, one night, as he was tossing and turning as usual, a brilliant idea zipped through his mind. Why not share the secret with someone or something that couldn't talk? Like, like a tree? Immediately, Babban Hajam jumped out of bed and hurried to a forest that lay just outside the city. Choosing a tall, dignified looking tree, he whispered against its trunk, Do you know, Tree Sahib, our respected Majesty, the great Nawab, is blessed with the ears of a donkey. Did you hear? The ears of a donkey. The tree waved its branches as if it had heard, and Babban Hajam went home and had the soundest sleep he had had in a long, long time. The next day, he found that his appetite had returned and his good humor as well. Now, one day, a woodcutter went to the forest to chop some wood. His eye fell on the tree that knew the secret. A fine tall tree, he said. It'll give me plenty of wood. And he chopped the tree down. The woodcutter sold the wood to a timber merchant, and then one day a man who made musical instruments came and bought the wood. He used it to make a harmonium, a pair of tablas, and a stringed instrument, the sarang. And then, what do you think happened? The Nawab's birthday arrived, and there was a grand celebration in court. A dancer and some musicians were called to perform. As the king's barber, Babban Hajam also received an invitation to join the celebration. And naturally, Babban Hajam went there very happily. The musicians tuned their instruments, and the dancer began her dance. Soon, the Nawab and his courtiers were swaying to the music and keeping beat with the rhythm. And then something very strange happened. Suddenly, above the jingling of the ankle bells of the dancer, a strange sound was heard. The courtiers exchanged puzzled glances. But there was no denying it. The musical instruments were saying something. A harmonium sang out in its low voice. Donkey's ears, a dear Nawab has donkey's ears. The strings of the sarangi thrummed. Who told you? Who told you? Who told you, my dear? Who? Who? The tablas boomed out in reply. Babban Hajam! Babban Hajam! The poor musicians were unable to believe their ears. They tried to play on, but once again the instrument sang out. A dear Nawab has donkey's ears. Who told you? Babban Hajam! Babban Hajjam. The dancer almost tripped and fell in fright. A murmur ran through the court. People put their hands to their mouths, trying to suppress their laughter. Nawab's face turned purple with fury. Stop! Stop at once! He cried, rising to his feet. Where's that traitor? Babban Hajjam! Babban Hajjam got up at once and tried to run away. But it was no use. The guards caught hold of him immediately and dragged him before the king. Please, your majesty, he begged. Please. I didn't tell a single living soul. Then he added softly. The secret was killing me, so I told a tree. You broke your promise, shouted the king. He turned to his guards. Throw him into the dungeon at once. Then he turned and went to his chambers with the queen and began to pace up and down, up and down. What'll happen now? He cried. Don't worry, said the queen. You've always done your best for the people. Why should you worry? But I'll be the laughing stock now, can't you see? Wailed the Nawab. This Babban Hajjam needs to have his head chopped off immediately. In the meantime, the news spread like wildfire through the city. Donkey's ears, exclaimed a man. That means he's a donkey. Deju, Deju. We can't have a donkey as a ruler, said another. Let's throw him out and get another king, said a third. Soon an angry crowd gathered and prepared to march to the palace. Then a woman spoke up. So what if he's got donkey's ears? Hasn't he had wells dug for you, built roads and inns for travelers? Doesn't he give freely to the poor? People stopped to think. She's right, the man said after a time. He's a good king, even though he has donkey's ears. You're right. Yes, yes, others chorused. Then go and tell him, said the woman. The Nawab heard the crowd yelling outside his palace. Your Majesty, please come out! Come out, Your Majesty! He was terrified. I'm going to lose my throne, he thought sadly. Then he heard them cry, We love you, Your Majesty. We don't care if you have the ears of a donkey or an elephant. See, said the queen. Babban Hajjam has actually done you a favor. Now you know how much your people actually love you. You're right, said the Nawab. Tell the guards to release him at once. Then the Nawab went out onto the balcony to greet the people and receive their good wishes. Babban Hajjam was set free and received a reward of 1,000 gold coins. Thank you, said the Nawab. You've taken a load off my mind. Now I don't have to worry about the people knowing my secret. I appoint you and your family royal barbers for all time. And the Nawab continued to rule wisely, and Babban Hajjam always served him